Good afternoon, everybody. It's 2 o'clock. Um, Looks like we have a group of people on. So I'm gonna go ahead and get our Kupuna Caucus meeting today for our June 6th meeting started. I'd like to call it to order. So welcome everybody. So first on our agenda, we have a presentation by Dr. Nakagawa from the Queen's Medical Center, and he's going to do a presentation on the science of neuroplasticity. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Nakagawa. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi everyone, aloha. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for giving this opportunity to do this presentation. I'm going to share my screen right now, and run the. You guys see this okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. To be honest, I don't know this meeting like the agenda, so hopefully this presentation is appropriate. I'm not sure. This is actually a presentation I gave to the AARP audience like a month ago. So it's that content. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. So sorry, let me just mute my uh, well, that's clinical texting. Okay, so this is about brain health and neuroplasticity, but the first slide is gonna be focused on heart. So a lot of us know that we can train our heart. You know, as we age, we can still keep pushing ourselves and keep running and train our heart and run a marathon. And that concept is widely accepted. There's a science behind that as well. Let me just hold on. Let me just silence my and then sorry, let me just silence everything here. Okay, so the science of heart aging, as we age, we can have genetic changes, chromosomal shortening, and as well as inflammation and scarring and cell tissue death and so on. And that's how our heart ages. And then eventually, the heart can stop. You can have a cardiac arrest. But we all know that we can slow down this process by exercise. And there's also a science behind how and why exercise mitigate this aging process for the heart as an organ. So it can actually reduce the shortening of the chromosome called telomere, which actually repairs the DNA and so on. Also, it prevents mitochondrial dysfunction. So mitochondria is the energy organelle within the cells. Basically, all these things happen that prevents inflammation and scarring and cell death in the heart. And that's why we can keep running and thinking that we can keep our heart young. Um, but the similar concept for the brain has not been widely adopted. A lot of us, some of us think that we can actually train the brain, but I think a lot of the people in the community feel that brain is something that's sort of there and we can't do much about it. And then as we age, it's inevitable that we're going to be forgetful and lose our memory. And dementia is something that we don't have any control over. A lot of people feel like, well, I hope I don't get dementia or Alzheimer's one day. Let's hope and pray. And my presentation today hopefully will show you that we do have a lot more control than we thought, that we can actually train our brain and make our brain younger. And so the main concept that I want to focus on is neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity, what is that? It is really our ability for our brain to undergo structural and functional changes to form a new network. Literally, we can rewire our brain. Now, we are born with a certain number of brain cells, and when we lose some of them, we don't regenerate brain cells, but we can actually form new networks. So this is the visual concept, the visual proof that so each of these like the round dense body, that's the cell bodies for the neurons or brain cells. And then the brain cells, the neurons have all these sort of dendrites. They're like the tentacles or the branches, if it's a tree, that can grow and sprout out. And every time they touch, that's how you make a new network. So it's not the number of brain cells that you have, but it's the number of network connections that you have. And these are the things that can happen after 2 weeks of stimulation and 2 months after stimulation. And when I show this image, a lot of people may say, geez, what is that stimulation? Do you have to go travel to the East Coast, to the Johns Hopkins, get your brain zapped by some kind of a amazing technology or laser or ultrasound or get some kind of medication. No, it's not. It's something that we can just do at home every day anywhere. And neuroplasticity, there are two types. One is a structural plasticity, which is that type one. That's when anyone, kids, grandkids, nieces, we all learn new things. And even as we age, we can learn by reading and picking up new hobby and so on. And just by trying to acquire new skills and knowledge, that is plasticity. You're actually forming new network by doing that. Type 2 is a functional plasticity, and that happens when you actually damage your brain from stroke or brain injury. So other part of the brain can actually start to rewire. So if you lose a language part of the brain, you may not restore 100% of it, but there are other parts of the brain that can sort of rewire and take over some of the language function and so on. So how does that work? This is a little bit busy visually, apologize, but what you need is a very meaningful activation of the brain. It has to be meaningful, strong activation that's attached to emotion. It's called salience, has to mean something to you. So if you're doing things through, going through the motion, it's not going to stick. But if the practice makes perfect, that practice is attached to meaning, like I want to win this championship, I want to do this. That emotion creates neurotransmitter that actually helps the network connection to sort of strengthen and sprout. And then repetition also makes it better. So really, it's about just challenging, having a novel sort of activation and having like salience or meaning behind it. And that's how you kind of promote this neuroplasticity. There's a whole scientific sort of like process that is involved with it, which I'm not going to go into detail, but just want to highlight that people are studying the process of neuroplasticity, and the brain is not static like we thought it was. Again, this is really the reason behind how we can train our brain, neuroplasticity. Now, people may say, what are these things to work out your brain? This is not all of them, but just some of the examples, such as trying to learn a new language, learn a new instrument, learn new sports or tools, solving puzzles, play chess, memory games, other creative activities, and just sort of reading, some being analytical. And the thing is, the key is that don't get complacent. And so people may pick up like Sudoku and get used to it. And then you may want to like change to something else. The constant challenge is the key for neuroplasticity. Now, I mentioned about sprouting. So I like to use analogy of sort of plants growth. You put a seed, hopefully it's going to sprout and it's going to grow fast and sprout out. And that's the process what we want to do. Now, the process of brain exercise, challenging and so on, it's sort of like putting the water and providing sunlight, water, sunlight, and hopefully the seed will germinate and sprout. And the other key thing is the soil. The soil, that's a foundation. That's really important because if you have poor foundation or the poor soil, you know that vegetation, that plant will not thrive. So I'm going to show you what is the soil for the neurons. It's really based on exercise, diet, and sleep. Now, you may say, like, well, that's kind of the same thing that my doctor from 20 years ago has said, like, nothing has changed. And what I'm trying to show is that there's a lot of actual powerful science coming out as to why each of these pillars of healthy lifestyles is important in your plasticity. And it's not just people just saying it's good for you, but there's a science behind it. And my personal other circle is art and social connection. Those are also other key factors to enrich the soil for the neurons. Now, many of you know that using fertilizer or not using fertilizer will make a night and day difference in terms of how the plants grow. And we actually have a fertilizer for the brain. It's called brain derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF. I like to call it brain fertilizer. That's my own nickname. So with BDNF, with a brain fertilizer, you have a lot more robust brain sprouting phenomenon. It acts like a steroid, like in the neuronal connection. It promotes neurogenesis, dendritogenesis, which are all the synapses, the dendrites sprouting out, synaptogenesis. So synapse is the connection between the two neurons. So that's strengthened. So all these things happen with BDNF. And when I show this, many people say, "Hey, doc, I want that. Where can I buy those supplements? Where can I order that? Or can you prescribe me the BDNF?" And the bad news is there is no such thing. You can't order anything online for BDNF. But the good news is it's everywhere. You can just create it on your own. So how do you create BDNF, more brain fertilizer? It's the power of exercise. So I'm going to show you how exercise creates a BDNF. So now by the way, we're learning more and more that exercise is probably the most powerful prevention factor for Alzheimer's disease, both in animal studies and humans. So people who have a lot more regular exercise, a lot of walking in midlife, they have lower prevalence of dementia. And we've known that for some time, how exercise leads to less dementia risk and so on, but we just couldn't connect the dots. We kind of knew it's good for the heart, it's good for the blood vessels, but why dementia? We're learning more now. So when we exercise, a couple of things happen. So three mechanisms why it boosts the BDNF. One is a neuronal activity, which I'm going to talk about, increases the blood flow to the brain, and then creates an exerkine, which is a hormone from the muscle tissue. So the first one, so what happens when you go running or surfing or whatnot? You get all this like surge of neurotransmitters like serotonin, noradrenaline, dopamine. I went surfing this morning and that came out, right? And I catch the wave, like feels good, exercising, boom, that actually helps turn on the BDNF gene inside the brain and creates more BDNF, like more brain fertilizer. Number two, when you're exercising, you actually get more blood flow to the brain, just more circulation. And that process increases the nitric oxide. And then that actually promotes the BDNF expression. The third one is a fascinating part, which is that your muscles, again, your thigh muscles, biceps muscles, those skeletal muscles, create hormones that go into the blood vessels, circulate around, ends up in the brain, and actually promote BDNF. So these are some of the hormones that we're discovering now that actually ends up in the brain and then makes the brain healthier. And so now the concept is exercise not about just losing weight, staying fit, slim, work on your heart, but it's more about keeping your brain healthier through this mechanism. Now, what's interesting is a hormone called irisin that's again secreted by the muscle, which is so interesting, which we found out relatively recently. Yes, it does go to the brain and promote more BDNF or the brain fertilizer, but there's something else that happens when you exercise and create irisin. So this irisin again not only work on your heart and then blood vessels and lower the blood pressure and then makes the inflammation better. The other thing that does is that it helps get rid of this toxic waste product from the brain. It's called beta amyloid plaque. So beta amyloid is this bad plaque that you see in Alzheimer's dementia. And there's a lot of theory behind it, but you don't want to see these plaques in the brain. That's toxic to the brain, and that's one of the major reasons for brain degeneration in Alzheimer's. It turns out that irisin basically leads to this product called neprosin that helps cleave and chops up the beta amyloid bad plaque. Okay. So now the concept of exercise is not just losing weight, staying fit, but creating this thing to chop up that dementia plaque in your brain. Now, chopping up the dementia plaque itself is not going to be enough. You have to like get rid of it, right? So, oh, I'm sorry. So again, the animal studies have shown that many sort of a benefit of exercise in preventing dementia. So that's been shown. Now, chopping up the plaque itself is not enough. You have to get rid of it. Sleep is important for that. And now, first of all, sleep also boosts the BDNF. And when you're sleep deprived, you don't make that brain fertilizer. And sleep is important for memory consolidation and also activates the glymphatic system. So this is what I'm going to talk about. So glymphatic system is a very relatively new concept, maybe like of the last 10 years. I didn't know this when I was in training. So the brain actually has a waste clearance system. It drains the waste basically. It's around the blood vessels and comes out. It's kind of like a gutter on your roof that you have stuff like built up, And then with the rain and water, it kind of flushes out. It's like a little gutter. Okay. And this sort of like little channel clears all the things that you don't want in the brain. And then again, the amyloid plaque, the exercise can help chop it up, but you need to like clear it. You know what flushes it? It's sleep. So it was discovered in 2013 that during active sleep, like a good sleep, that's when we flush the toxin out of the brain. Okay. And there was a study that really showed that compared to the wake state and sleep state, the metabolic waste clearance is different. And this really emphasizes why having not just like how many hours of sleep, but actually like a high quality sleep that is important. And it's been shown like sleep deprivation or shift workers and so on, they have a higher risk of having dementia. And this may be part of the reason. Again, it's not just like, duration, because there's a way to measure the quality of sleep. So if you have sleep apnea or other issues, you may be sort of sleeping, quote unquote, but you may not be having like a good clearance sort of like mechanism. And to get a good sleep, it's like circles back to exercise. So if you have good exercise during the day, you also get much better sleep at night. And you don't have to rely on like alcohol or sleep aid or so on. People have a generally good natural sleep. Now, I'm going to shift gear and talk about diet and gut microbiome. I'm going to intentionally not talk about all the diet, like which foods and which fish, and that because it goes on and on. So I'm going to talk about gut-brain axis, which is something that not that many people talk about. So we're learning more and more about the importance of gut flora. So we have billions of bacteria and other microbes in the intestine, and they're like the soil, right? Like that what's in the soil, if this is like a gardening analogy, is so important, because if you have a lot of bad bacteria, it can cause inflammation and makes your intestine leaky, and that can lead to chronic inflammation that can ties to the brain, that can cause plaque rupture in the heart and cause heart attack and so on. If you have good bacteria, your intestine stays tight, and then you don't have that much inflammation. The neurotransmitters that go into the brain is actually made mostly in the intestine too. So what you eat really determines how your brain operates. And the classic example is like, that turkey, the Thanksgiving dinner, and you get super sleepy because you get a lot of serotonin. That's like a classic example. But what you eat and when you eat really matters as well. And caloric restriction or intermittent fasting can also helps shift the flora into the sort of like a good bacteria. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about brain state and how that ties to our diet and gut microbiome. What we don't want is this inflammation in the brain. So if you have constant inflammation, that's been associated with dementia, stroke, brain fog, and so on. And then some people who may suffer from daily memory issues, if they have inflammation issue, and if they actually work on that, some people they feel like their memory is much better. So some people feel like, oh, my memory is not great, I'm getting forgetful, but by lifestyle changes and changing this inflammation status, they can feel much better as well. So when I did my own research on sort of this topic, okay, BBB is this blood-brain barrier, which is this sort of a barrier within the brain. So it's like a barrier between the blood vessels and the brain. So you want to have a very tight barrier between the blood vessels and the brain. If you have leaky barrier, a lot of things can go into the brain, and that can trigger inflammation. Um, and in this kind of like research, I found this word butyrate. It says butyrate produced by gut microbiome makes the blood-brain barrier tighter, prevents things from leaking through. And then on the right, it says butyrate also attenuates or reduces basically inflammation in the brain and in the gut. So I kept wondering, what is butyrate? Like, how do you get butyrate? Turns out butyrate is when you eat fiber that's not digestible, and if you have good bacteria, so probiotic, and it tries to break down this fiber, okay, for you, because your body can't digest the fiber. The byproduct of that fiber uh, breakage is butyrate. Okay, that's how we get butyrate. Boom, plant-based diet, high vegetables, so on, fiber. And fiber is no longer just about preventing constipation, having like a daily bowel movement. Fiber is now about having more butyrate to keep your blood-brain barrier tight, reduces brain inflammation, and then keeps your brain healthy, not just about just uh, bowel movement. So what has butyrate? Again, a lot of like dietary fiber, like nuts, seeds, whole grains, vegetables, legumes, but other things, like that we can easily access, like kimchi, natto, sauerkraut, kombucha, yogurt, all the fermented food that has a lot of butyrate, as well as seaweed, microalgae, and luckily dark chocolate. Last thing is the art and social connection that I wanted to touch on. So art does a lot of amazing thing for the brain. Um, it makes you get to be creative, you get to take risks, you get to sort of like meditate a little bit, and then you can have the mental exercise, and it's kind of like refreshing. You get this like dopamine release, and when you're sort of at this sort of like state of like not daydreaming, but kind of like daydreaming, thinking, and so on. You get into this resting state. You can get into the flow state, which is sort of being in the zone. And those two states are really good for your brain. It actually augment your self-awareness, actually increases empathy, and then all these things like, social, sort of like I'm saying, social cue, theory of mind, and then all these traits are really important to be a better person and then understand people. And then it requires being at this resting state, which is lacking in the current society because everyone's too busy, too busy, too busy. When they have a downtime, they have that smartphone, iPad, constantly information's coming in, and there's not much time to sort of stop and reflect. So, having like a little sketchbook, coloring book, and taking like 20 minutes to do that is good for the brain. And if you want to go further and practice like meditation and being mindful, I just want to sort of highlight that this sort of a mindfulness practice has been shown possibly increase the cortical thickness of the brain, so cortex, which is the gray matter, and also definitely reduce the stress level. And then it's been shown to improve the memory capacity. This is just one study showing that possibly this meditation practice can increase the thickness of hippocampus, which is the memory center of the brain. And last thing is a social connection. So this is, we're all social being humans. In animal studies too, it's been shown that social connection, social like enriched environment has been shown to reduce depression, increase memory, and then overall basically better brain health. And also, at the structural level in humans too, it's been shown that social isolation may structurally change the brain like thickness as well, which is somewhat still like a preliminary phase. But the important thing is that loneliness or social isolation has been shown to like really increase the risk of dementia by 50%, increase the risk of any kind of early death by 25%, and increase the risk of stroke and heart disease by 30%. Um, so ES Surgeon General's report really highlight the importance of addressing this. Loneliness and social isolation is a public health issue. And it's not just about being depressed or psychologically down. There's a lot of physiologic effect that happens by socially being isolated. And this figure just kind of tries to shows that there are all these other physiologic impact that happens when someone's alone. Um, and just want to highlight that we are actually not Queens, but Bihari, which is my other organization, Brain Health Applied Research Institute. We're part of the Global Brain Care Coalition, which was set up by Mass General Hospital at Harvard. We're one of the many sites to sort of together work on this effort. Mass General Group developed this brain care score that shows that all these factors that to work on and keep track of in our adults and our elderly population, that it's shown that if you have all these components like in a good status, your risk of dementia or stroke goes down, and if it's really bad, it goes up. A lot of the things at the top are medical, like blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, BMI, nutrition, alcohol, smoking. I think those are the things that the doctors can talk about, address possibly in the clinic. But there are a lot of things that the doctors don't really do well, which is having them acquire new habits for exercise, sleep, stress management, social relationships, having meaning in life, purpose in life. It's not something we can prescribe easily. So I think the way to move forward is to really partner with the communities and just the way change the way we live in general, change the surroundings so that our residents or community folks can easily adopt better lifestyle and then tackle this. And the reason why, just to wrap up, why I'm talking a lot about the lifestyle changes, one, because there's no real cure for Alzheimer's right now. And number two, Alzheimer's dementia is becoming like stroke, where we're learning that we can prevent this. This is the projection for dementia around the world. With this projection by 2050, we're looking at like 130 million people being affected with dementia. And then in 2024, US spent about $360 billion for Alzheimer's care. Um, and we're projecting to spend, for the nation about $1 trillion for the care for dementia by 2050. These are the stats for Hawaii. Um, Sorry for the details. You can probably just get it online, but it is substantial. And the main point I wanted to make is that this is something that we need to tackle early, and it cannot be done just by the physicians like myself. Like it has to be like a community effort. I like the quote that Dr. Roseanne from Mass General used during the Global Brain Care Coalition is that it's like the pandemic, like the COVID-19, but that's going to happen like 20 years from now. We kind of know it. And to really make a dent, we have to work together with everyone. Just like the COVID, everyone wore a mask, they did their thing, right? It's not just the doctors. Everyone did their part to like prevent the transmission. So this has to be tackled at multiple level, at the legislature level, at the community level, residential, business, and everyone has to kind of get involved. Um, and the good news is, it's been shown that about half of the dementia are preventable. If you can really work on all these factors, it's expected that we can probably reduce the dementia rate by about half. Okay, and to make so the other good news is we're doing something right here in Hawaii. We do have variation in health outcomes, but if you look around, a lot of people are doing this already. And then I think one step is to really acknowledge what we're doing right with science. We are relatively eating healthy, a lot of exercise, a lot of social connection, vitamin D with sun, and so on. So I think it starts with here with us and disseminate the knowledge. And then hopefully everything that we do from building new buildings and houses and anything we do, try to sort of like incorporate this sort of mindset so that we can have more awareness everywhere we go. Um, anyway, that's all I have. And then thanks for your attention.
All right, thank you, Dr. Nakagawa. That was really great information. I really appreciate it. Uh, since we have you on, I'm going to open it up to the members if anyone has a question for Dr. Nakagawa. Just yeah. Oh,
I have a
right.
question.
Um,
John, let John go. John McDermott. I'll go after John.
okay, for John. I think you're on mute. Can't hear you.
Can't hear you, John. You got a
John, I don't think you can.
audio pro. Let him work on it. I got a short question for Dr. Nakagawa. One is thanks so much for your presentation. I just read a book called The Wisdom Paradox by Elkanan Goldberg. He's a neuroscientist. He mentions a lot of things that you did, neuroplasticity, neurogenesis, that sort of thing. There's much less emphasis on exercise. So my question is there any source, any book that you could recommend that we can use in order to become more familiar with this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I wish I can say I have an answer like this one book. I'm actually looking for something like that. I haven't found anything like that. And you can probably like, just search online, but I don't have any particular book I can recommend. I've been kind of like doing my own research and I'm trying to sort of one day create a book, write a book myself. But yeah, so I don't have anything like that, but I'm sure other people have published something similar.
Should I try again? Is my audio better?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. So, Dr. Nakagawa, since you're into research, I'm the state long-term care ombudsman. I go to all the long-term care facilities, and what I see is not what you presented as kind of like the ideal situation. An example, people go in for therapy, some make enough progress, they go home, yay, they're a winner. Some people do not make enough progress. They end up staying there long-term, and we put them right back in the wheelchair. So even though they made a certain amount of progress and the facilities build Medicare for that therapy, we don't maintain it. We let them just backslide. And I see it almost as kind of like a form of neglect. So the exercise, residents are not getting exercise. The sleep, if you have one roommate, two roommates, three roommates, we do have some facilities with four. Somebody snores, somebody's got the TV on loud, somebody needs the nurse, the light goes on, the light goes off. Nobody gets a good night's sleep in a nursing home. The activities are pretty passive. Playing bingo is the most active you're going to get, but otherwise it's watching TV. If somebody's reading the newspaper to you and calling that current events. And I just feel like we could do so much more. And I would love for you to maybe take on a nursing home as a project, make that your book. How did everything that you are suggesting improve the lives of these people so that not only did you reduce whatever dementia that they had, but just the quality of their life has improved so much dramatically. And the staff notice it, the families notice it. We're not doing these things. And it just seems to me like it's a very easy thing to incorporate.
Thank you. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yes. And in fact, there is a talk about sort of using this approach to hope, maybe design like the next like senior living facility. So I'm kind of like, in discussion with that group to see if we can create a different type of senior living, creating a lot of these programs inside. It's not like it costs more, it's just a different culture, different program. So, but you're right.
Okay, thanks. Does anybody else have a question for Dr. Nakagawa?
I just want to say thank you. I really enjoyed that presentation. I've seen a lot, and that one was very clear and it made a lot of sense. And I was wondering if that was going to be available to us. I could share some of those slides with my staff.
Yep, yeah, I sent it to Alex and then I can send it again.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we can have that sent out to other members. You see, Donald, you have a question? Go ahead.
It's Harrison. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hello?
This is Harrison Peters. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Yes.
hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm the president of the Hawaii Adult Daycare and Day Health Association. And what I hear from my compatriots is that the vast majority of our clients that are coming in have Alzheimer's and dementia. And in my own facility, I would say 80% plus, maybe even more like 90% have some level of Alzheimer's dementia. So when I look at your figures, they're interesting, but from my, I'm in a little bubble, but from what I'm seeing, we're getting a lot. And I've been doing this for 20 years. I've never seen this where just about every single person walking in the door has Alzheimer's dementia. So I don't know how you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I mean it's exploding. The number of dementia, Alzheimer's is going up. Like that graph I showed you, it's going up, and it's gonna be a big problem. And then partially it's due to the fact that our lifestyle is getting more and more like Western, like more sedentary. So all the risk for like heart disease and stroke, it's all tied together to Alzheimer's dementia. We're learning a lot about that. Now I just want to sort of level set a little bit. My presentation was meant for people without dementia, and really try to educate people like upstream, like kids, young adults,
Yeah.
middle age, so that they can make the lifestyle changes now so they don't get dementia. I'm not really claiming that if we do this, people with dementia now can get better. That is a whole. So I just want to make it clear I'm not saying that at all.
Oh, yeah.
But back to
Yeah.
back to your question. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of
Get
dementia with
into
the
it. It's
problem.
depressing.
Yeah.
And we go around, but from a vacancy perspective, kind of how are you folks doing with, how many vacant positions you have, or how are you doing with filling them?
Talking to
We
me,
have only one vacancy, and that position's going to be filled expeditiously.
Excellent.
And that's just because somebody, because one of our folks transferred up to a higher position in DOH, Wendy
Okay.
Nioa. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Dimitri?
I mentioned my Maui position. That's been a double to fill. It's been 4 years, but at least I have 89 hired. But that's been kind of. And I forgot to mention that I did talk to Lauren about the training that we were talking about just a little bit ago. And Trey, you did I'm putting Trey Silver to that. So he did it. That's not capacity to over to it then. So I
There you go. Yeah, just want to reach out to him, hopefully, teach something.
We might have had some kind of cross conversation, but I know Donald had his hand up. Donald, you have a question? Donald Sakamoto?
Yes, Corey, thank you for letting me speak. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nakagawa. Donald Sakamoto, my mom had dementia in 2015, diagnosed by Dr. Liao, and she died in 2016. So as a blind individual, I lost my eyesight some time ago. I use my other senses. I eat properly, diets. I eat some fiber as well as berries and stuff for the brain. And I use my other senses. So my memory has come very sharp because I lost my eyesight. So I testified legislature for different bills as well as city council. I'm also on the neighborhood board for Kaneohe, and I do ask a lot of questions. And people are amazed at what I can remember from things from before that happened during my testimonies and whatnot. And I try to use my brain as much as I can on the computer as well as interact with other people. So to keep me going at a young age of 63. But thank you for your presentation. Yeah.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. You sound like you're a living example of neuroplasticity. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's inspiring.
And thanks, Donald. And a question from Rep Shimizu. You have a hand up? Go ahead.
I have one more question. Dumb question. Hello, this is
Can we
Harrison
let
Peters again.
Rep Shimizu, and then I'll come back to you. Okay.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm worried that I'm not getting enough sleep. And you mentioned sleep. So you got any statistics on that as far as what is sleep deprived, or how much is enough sleep?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Like I personally, I don't think I'm getting enough sleep either. But little thing that really made a difference. Again, I'm not endorsing any one product or another, but like my wife got me an Oura ring, and then some people use other wearable. But these things really, really like accurately track your sleep quality. So this ring really measures when I fall asleep and how many times I wake up during the at night, like duration, the deep sleep and REM sleep and so on. And it's been really helpful, not just to measure, but it really gives you, it teaches you what affects your sleep. So I learned a lot over the last couple of years. How do I get good sleep and how I mess up my sleep? And then even if I slept for, let's say, 6 hours, some sleep is really good, and it gives you a score and then why and so on. So I think it's important to sort of people to have that kind of a feedback. And then the other thing I didn't mention, and again, I'm not like endorsing alcohol is good or bad or anything like that. But let's say like, I say, hey, having like 1 or 2 drinks is okay, right? Like, it's controversial whether I can say that or not, but just say 2 drinks is okay, right? It also matters when you have those 2 drinks, meaning that if I have 2 beers at 9 p.m. and go to sleep at 10, my sleep is horrible. But if I have 2 beers at 6 p.m., have 3 hours of little break, shower, rest, and then sleep at 10, my sleep is actually pretty good. So, stuff like that, I'm learning that it's not just about what you can eat, how much, but also when you can have those that can impact your sleep. So again, I think like data is important, and there are a lot of wearables out there that can keep track of your sleep.
How do you spell that ring? Aura.
OURA. And it actually shows your HRV, which I didn't know till I got this, which is a heart rate variation, heart rate variability. So even if you have a regular rhythm, like let's say your beat is 60 beats per minute, not arrhythmia, like normal, but healthy status, you should have little micro variation and good. Like if you're relaxed, no stress, you're in a healthy status, you should have a sort of like a nice variation. So HRV, the heart rate variation should be high. But if you're under like a micro stress, and people often say, I'm not in stress because I don't have any things like, but some people have a lot of like micro stress subconsciously or what they eat. And then if you're under micro stress, your HRV goes down, like really low, like you don't have any variation. So it shows on the wearable. And then oftentimes it's either like what you ate, or like if you have some kind of a subconscious stress, or sometimes yeah, we're like having alcohol before. All those little things changes your HRV. So again, I'm not endorsing anything, but wearable can help you a lot, help you learn a lot about yourself.
And you just get that on Amazon or something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks. Good advice.
Thanks. Okay. Is it Harrison? I know he. Do you have another question? Is he still on? I don't see him. Does anybody else have a question for Dr. Nakagawa? Seeing none. Thank you. Oh, hello. There's somebody. Oh. Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Nakagawa.
Yeah,
We're
of
gonna
course.
let you go. Yeah, appreciate
Thanks
it.
so much for inviting me. Nice to meet you all. Take care. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Have a good weekend. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next part of our agenda. We're just gonna briefly go over the Kupuna Caucus package from this past legislative session. Let's just have a. We'll just be very brief, but just catch everyone up on kind of like the current status. Okay, so as you know, we had five bills that was included in our package, and 3 of them actually passed this session. So House Bill 703, which was the extension of the Kupuna rent supplement, and HB 705, which is the Executive Office on Aging's Medi pilot project, to just get more people enrolled in benefits that they qualify for. And HB 702, so this was the measure to increase Medicaid reimbursement for in-home care, and that was included directly into the state budget. So while no bills have passed, the funding was placed into the executive budget in HB 300. And so there's a bunch of other bills related that we've been tracking through the session. HB 320, supportive decision making. So this is the one that came out of the guardianship working group, and it's sort of a kind of like I want to say like a provisional guardianship, because there's a lot of folks out there who may need help with certain decision making, but don't necessarily need a guardianship. And so we've been seeing what the guardianship working group came up with was that there's been a backlog in the judiciary because of all these guardianship petitions, where a lot of people really don't need a full-on guardianship. So this is sort of to address that issue. HB 474 is fall prevention. So this is the one. It's usually one of the issues we always advocate for is to fund the DOH fall prevention program. HB 713 is the rate study for Medicaid in-home services. So this is the one that there was the feds, CMS did a rate study, but did not include in-home services. So this is just trying to get that data so we can use it when we try to come up with policy decisions. HB 700 was the Alzheimer's Association priority, the cognitive assessments for early detection of dementias. And similarly, SB 1252 was the dementia training for the University of Hawaii Johnny Burns School of Medicine for incorporating into the medical school curriculum. And then we had two resolutions that passed. So that's the disaster preparedness awareness for Kupuna. Currently, yes, they're all waiting on the governor's desk, just so the caucus knows. Senator Moriwaki and I have both requested the governor to hold a signing ceremony for these measures. We're still waiting back. We know he has a very busy schedule and he's trying to fit these in when he can. So as soon as we get any information on whether we're going to have one or not, we'll let everybody know. But yeah, right now we're just kind of waiting to see. We are waiting for the intent to veto list. I don't anticipate any of these being on the list, but you never know. So this is just sort of for the folks that have been around. This is just sort of the timeline, the rest of the timeline for these bills. And then I think that's it. We're getting close to 3 o'clock. So if anyone has any questions about where we are in the process, be happy to answer them. Donald, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Corey, thank you for the update. I just want to know the bills that didn't pass this year, when we'll be having our next meeting for bills to reintroduce these couple of bills for the Kupuna Caucus. Would that be in November? I can't recall when we had one.
Yes. Yeah. So I know. So we did it a little later last year because of the general elections. It was an election year, so we had to kind of push it off till November to make sure whoever. we might be able to do it earlier this year. So normally what we try to do is we do we set October, the meeting in October for the meeting where we actually go over proposals.
Right.
And then usually in the subsequent meetings before January, then we do the voting and then the unveiling of the top 5.
Oh, okay.
By the caucus. So yeah, we'll send out the information, but probably won't happen till the fall.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your efforts and all the representatives, state and house, for doing what they can on these bills. Appreciate it. And the people
yeah,
that
supported. Yeah. No, yeah, and this year, we're very grateful to have very supportive champions. Senator San Buenaventura and Representative Martin, the chairs of the Human Services Committee, really helped to steer a lot of these things and move them along the process. And also Chair Yamashita of Finance and Ways and Means Chair De La Cruz. So,
yeah, thank you.
I want to say that Senator Moriwaki and I can do it all, but we really can't. And we really got to thank all the other members who, through the process, have helped to keep these moving. Hey, Dr. Lewin.
Hey, so Corey, thank you. I just wanted to add a comment at the end that SHPTA is working with a number of parties across the state on some pilot projects that could be very helpful to us, specifically focused on the Medicare beneficiaries who are not eligible for Medicaid, meaning they don't have home health services in Medicare because Medicare doesn't cover those services. We're going to try to provide ways to help people who don't qualify for Medicaid services to actually stay at home and age at home. So we've got an interesting program there. To keep the cost down, we're looking at expanding the use of volunteers. But these will be volunteers that have gone through a vetting. They will be supervised. They'll be in a program. We haven't quite sure what we're going to call this program. We'll be back in to talk about it next year. Maybe Kupuna Aloha, which I mentioned previously. The program will be very valuable to the Medicare Advantage plans, but for the Medicare patients who are going to be left out and who end up overutilizing both inpatient and ED services, this program could really save a lot of money and then provide, a tremendous benefit to people who want to age at home. So we'll be back, and maybe at a subsequent meeting we can talk more about it because the pilot's going through my Kupuna Advisory Council. I'll bring the EOA into it as well, but I'd like to discuss it before we get to next year's legislature, because I think for the Medicare side, we probably need a little bit of seed funding to get this going to demonstrate that it works. Anyway, looking forward to sharing more about the program.
That's great. Thanks, Dr. Lewin. Yeah, we can definitely put you on a future agenda.
Okay. Thank you.
See any hands up or anyone? So I'm going to move on in the agenda. So I'm going to move to announcements. So I just wanted to get a temperature check from the caucus. So next month's first Friday is actually July 4th. So I was talking it over with Senator Moriwaki, and we're thinking about moving it to the 11th or maybe canceling it, depending on if there wasn't anything pressing that we needed to discuss next month. So do folks have any preferences, or would the 11th work for everybody?
Hello, can you hear me? This is Harrison
Yeah.
Peters.
Yes.
I did want to make a comment. I got lost there, but has anybody seen or like to comment on the Channel 2 report on the 27th of May, reporting that Hawaii has the second worst long-term care in the country? Nobody else saw it.
Yeah, I saw it. It had this Jack Lewin. I saw it. I mean, it doesn't really condemn all the long-term care.
Well, I didn't say that. I just said,
but it did have there were really some issues that we should be addressing if the data is right.
yeah. And that couples with my report saying that over 50% of the adult daycares and day health in Hawaii have closed in the last 4 years, over 50%. So I'm just saying that I don't know who to talk to. How do I get some research or help to see what's going on here? Because if this keeps on going with the long-term care, skilled nursing, adult daycare, adult day health, we're in big kimchi. There's no place to put people.
Yeah, well, we have. That's why we're developing this program to help more people safely stay at home. But I think there's really a workforce shortage that's contributing a lot to this.
Well, I'm working on opening 2 CNA schools. But anyway, so I'm trying to work on that end. But the main problem is closure of facilities, long-term care facilities, skilled nursing facilities, assisted living facilities. Go down the list, and I can give you a list that we're worse off than we were 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But the population has gone up. So I don't hear what the state has got, to say about this. Is there any plan to, a committee to discuss, figure out what can we do? I got some ideas, but I don't see any place where I can, help me out. I don't, my association is saying something's got to get done, or we're gonna all close. If 50% in the last 4 years, another 50% in the next 4 years, we'll be all gone. 4 years, my friend. That's astounding.
Sorry,
So,
I don't know where my chat, my hand raising. This is Debbie Morikawa from the Department of Health.
yeah,
So yes, we are very alarmed about just the status of long-term care, and we have been just looking initially internally at what are the regulations that govern all of these facilities, in addition to looking at what are the staffing
yep,
shortages and
yep.
staffing deficiencies, just to be including of the
That's
people that are in the field. And it is a daunting task, but we are trying to take that on. The original regulations that came out in the 80s, and it didn't take into account the acuities that we're seeing today.
yep.
As you mentioned, that there are a lot of places that are closing because the challenge of caring for the population today is significantly higher, yet the costs, as well as the costs, but the reimbursements are not there. So all of those factors make it a very complex issue, but that doesn't mean that we're not working on it. It's just going to take a little while for us to understand it. We're getting a little bit closer to seeing what all the pieces are. So as an example, just so you understand where I'm coming from, one of my big issues right now is looking at, from the community-based residential side, we have adult residential care homes, we have expanded adult residential care homes, and we have a community CCFFHs, community care foster family homes.
Yes.
And they are all seeing very similar types of residents or clientele. The most significant acuities are in the CCFFHs, yet they are the lowest regulated of all of the three. And in the rules, for whatever reason, instead of requiring a CNA to be the primary caregiver, it's just an NA. And we tried to introduce legislation, thank you to Senator Moriwaki's office, to change that so that it is a CNA that must provide that primary care. And it unfortunately, it didn't get heard. We're going to try again. And that's something that we're really going to need your guys' support on, because if you're seeing, yes, did you?
I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Go ahead. Keep on going.
Oh, so basically, they're all seeing the same levels of care. When the adult residential care home rules came out in the 80s, the type of clientele you were seeing was that individual who basically could walk. And the rules actually said you had to be ambulatory and you had to be continent, which really paints a picture of somebody who can kind of take care of themselves. They go to the bathroom on their own, but they needed supervision. We know we're a long ways from that now. Almost everyone needs supervision when they're walking. So how can you take care of 5 people when, all of them need assistance when they're moving around in their homes, or at least 3 out of the 5, perhaps. If you've got someone that needs ICF level of care, meaning nursing facility care, how can you have people sleeping throughout the night? Yet we know, even though they're supposed to have a caregiver awake at night in case someone needs it, very rarely does that occur. But for us to make those types of changes, we need to make sure that these operators can continue to operate, that they're going to make enough money to be able to operate. And when I say make enough money, yes, you hear about those facilities or those homes that are bringing in $10,000, $12,000 a month per resident, but that's only the private pay. We as a state need to always make sure that we're going to provide rules that will help to serve those people that don't have that type of income. So this shouldn't be just for the very wealthy. This needs to also be able to serve those that basically can only pay maybe $4,000 or $5,000 a month, if that much. And so it's a challenge. How do you create that balance? So all of those things are being taken into consideration. I took down your number. I'd be happy to speak with you to get your ideas. We're getting a little bit closer to where we want to actually go out into the community. But a lot of it has been understanding our rules first, because we have the CCFFHs that came from DHS, got put into OCA, and somehow the rules just kind of got jumbled along the way. Case management got put into the foster care homes, and it doesn't really fit there, because case management actually really needs to be regulated separately from the homes. We're seeing that nurses aren't necessarily providing the proper oversight to the residents in these homes, and someone needs to hold them accountable. So we're trying to figure out how can we do that within the current structure, because I don't want to keep changing Band-Aid, piecemeal, all of these different rules. We need to look at a set of rules that are going to encompass what are the acuity needs that we have now. But secondly, what's really important to me is not only does it need to be regulated more effectively, we also need to look at the quality of life of these individuals living in these homes. So regulation is not the only factor. It's looking at, as I think it was Dr. Nakagawa was saying, and I think John brought up, we need to look at what are we doing to encourage that quality of life, so that there is that activity going on, that there is that engagement, that there is a sense that this is a home-like environment, because that was the whole purpose of having these community-based homes. So I know that's a lot, and you got to get on another call.
You've done a great job. I'm just asking, and I'm glad you took my number down, because I've never been talked to, asked my opinion, what my associations, because we've got a big part of this. We're the most cost-effective place for seniors to go to, and yet we had never been consulted. And that, kind of bothers me, but now I'm kind of saying, hey, if I don't say anything, we're going to die. And that's going to be a big hole in the whole spectrum of services.
Well, we're going to hit a crisis in less than 5 years is my anticipation, because when I look at the numbers,
it's already
there are
here.
about 80 homes that are serving those individuals that came out of those mental health facilities, and they're being serviced by people in their 80s. So the caregivers are in their 80s. And once those caregivers start to lose their ability to walk, then those residents are going to have to find somewhere else, and nobody wants these residents. So that's my big crunch. I've got a couple of years to be able to see if I can put something into place. So Senator Moriwaki and Representative Chun, we're getting close to having something, hopefully a concept that we can kind of talk to you about, so that we can start looking at how can we move forward to see what we need to do to change this system. It's really a system of care that we need to address. It's not just a program. But again, I'm so sorry. I have to run. People are waiting for me on another call.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
And and whoever you are, 808-341-1527, I'd be happy.
Harrison Peters.
Oh, okay.
I'm the director, president of the.
We'd be happy to chat with you about this at SHPTA too, because we're also very interested in this topic. So,
please.
You know how to get hold of me.
Somebody going to call me, or somebody I can call, because I've been frustrated that we're not being heard as an association.
So if you could just send me your contacts at John, I go by Jack, but my official name is john.lewin@doh.hawaii.gov. And I'll set up a time for us to talk.
All right, John. So thank you so much.
doh.hawaii.gov. Thank you. Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I know we're over 3 o'clock. So thanks.
Sorry. Yeah. Thanks for your service.
Glad you got that.
Well, I waited for everybody else. I try to be considerate, and it's a hot topic. So it's not easy. So anyway, thank you for your service, sir, and I'll talk again.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Corey. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So we're gonna, I'm just gonna tentatively schedule it for July 11th.
Okay, good.
Sounds
Good.
good.
We'll
Thank
send out the information beforehand.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Thank you. Wow.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.